So, wow, this is actually a lot more people than I expected. Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Seale Rapolai. I'm a software engineer, tech geek, and a huge anime fan. But for the most part, I see myself as more of a code ninja. So I'm here today to talk to you about my journey from when I was a young code ninja all the way until I became a tech sensei. And obviously, all the lessons that I've learned along the way. And I'm sure you're probably wondering why specifically a code ninja? Well, this takes me back all the way to when I first started in high school and I first started watching anime. There was this particular anime called Naruto, which is essentially an anime about ninjas. Well, for those of you that don't know, it essentially follows the journey of the main character called Naruto as he seeks recognition from his peers and dreams about becoming the Hokage, which is essentially just the leader of their village. Well, you see, Naruto had this mentor whose name was Jiraiya, one of my personal favorite characters. And he had once said to Naruto that a real ninja endures no matter what gets thrown at him. And I was so moved by these words that I've carried them even as a software engineer. Because let's be honest, as software engineers, we have to endure quite a lot. Like the time back in 2018 when I joined my first company along with 40 other graduates. And I'm sure you're all well aware that it's probably always a good idea to give your grads a bit of training before you actually send them out into the real world where they have to deal with clients. So the company I was working for at the time decided that it would be a good idea to put all 40 of us on the same project. So the project was to build a grocery shopping app. But bear in mind that this was before grocery shopping apps were actually a thing, which meant that specifically during the times when shy introverts such as myself had to leave the comfort of our homes and go out into the wild and do the shopping ourselves. But for us as grads, this meant that we didn't really have a good reference point in terms of how this thing actually had to be built. So, so the problem with the project was that it actually wasn't big enough to accommodate 40 different grads and then expect them to work productively and peacefully together. If you're finding this hard to imagine, you can imagine trying to get 40 different puppies to eat in neat little rows. So in theory, you may think it'll work out well, but in practice, you'll come to realize that it can get quite messy. So for us, since we're under a lot of pressure to actually get the project done, we're also extremely stressed, which meant that every single day we had to work until late at night. So finding bugs we had become a norm. So every single day we had to go in, fix 100 bugs that we weren't there the previous day. And this, along with the fact that people weren't so familiar with using version control systems like Git, meant that they didn't really know how to resolve merge conflicts. So every single day, we also had to go in and play a fun little game of who deleted my code. But fortunately for me, I didn't have to stay on the project for too long before they moved me on to other projects. And this time around, it was a much smaller project with a team of about 4 people. So having left the madness of the previous project, you can imagine just how excited I actually was. So I spent quite a lot of my time trying to upskill, research, learning about all the different tech that they were using on the project, also that I don't have to slow them down once the actual work started. But my excitement quickly died in the very first meeting when they had most of their conversations in a language that I didn't understand. So no matter how many times I tried to remind them that I didn't really know what you guys were saying, they would just as quickly go back to that language. Suffice to say, the meeting ended and I didn't really know what was going on. It was only after I had a one-on-one session with the team's lead that I finally understood what was actually required of me on the project. They explained to me what my role was, what the project was, and everything that we needed to do. But communication aside, the team was actually quite nice for the most part. They had a lot of interesting tech and more than enough work to actually go around. And not to mention, that this was also around the first time that I became lead on a project. Well, I say lead, but what had actually happened was that everybody else on the team either got moved to a different project or left the company altogether, leaving me as the only dev left on the team and as such as the de facto lead. But as the project had already taught me that my excitement is always short-lived, because around this time, I also found out that the project was actually 6 months behind schedule. So there I was again being forced to actually work until late at night every single day. The project did eventually come to an end, and I was moved on to other challenging projects, or two projects to be more specific. One where I was working as a support dev, essentially fixing any bugs that the client was asking for. And the other was I was dedicated as a full-time front-end dev. So for any seasoned engineer, I'm sure you know that working on multiple projects isn't too big of a deal. If anything, I'd say that it's expected of them. But for me, who was a junior at the time and still barely trying to find my feet, working on multiple projects proved to be quite difficult. And if anything, I might even say it was a recipe for disaster. A disaster that did eventually come when the client on the support project asked us to migrate the software to some new servers. We had initially thought that all we needed to do was a simple lift and shift. But I'm sure if you've ever worked on a lift and shift project, you know that it never works out like that. So the problem with that software was that it was quite old. It was quite literally built around the time when I first started high school. So which meant that the tech that they used was just as old. The documentation was almost non-existent. And the devs that had originally built and set up the system were unreachable. So as soon as we started the migration, there was a lot of issues, that popped up, which unfortunately I could only solve one at a time as they came. And around that same time, the other project where I was dedicated as a full-time dev also started to have a lot of urgent issues that needed my attention. So there I was, a junior, fresh in the industry, and I was stuck quite literally between two projects which were on fire. So you can imagine how I felt when I finally got a call from management, thinking that they were there to offer me some guidance or some help or even a little bit of advice. But all they could tell me was that I needed to work faster. I needed to work harder. It's been many years since then. And as they say, time heals all wounds. And in the coming years, I've essentially worked on many other projects, more than I could even care to count. And because of this, I've also had many other experiences, some of which were quite similar to the projects that I've just told you about, but others were completely different, teaching me something new and unexpected. But all these projects had their own challenges which I had to overcome one at a time as they came. And over the years, as I've spoken to many other engineers in the industry, I've also come to realize that a lot of these experiences weren't actually unique to me. There's many other people in our industry that have gone through something similar. And in some cases, they've probably even been through worse. Whether it's a project where a lot of the people that you're working with don't have a lot of technical knowledge or actually know what's going on, meaning that for the most part, you're all just running around trying to figure out what's going on and just trying to get things working. Or perhaps it's a project where the leadership is almost non-existent, meaning that for the most part, you have to figure out your own direction and figure out what actually needs to be done. Or perhaps it's even a project where nobody actually cares about your well-being, only what you can do for them. But as an engineer, having gone through all of these experiences, I've strived to do better, strived to be better. So I've dedicated quite a lot of my time to upskilling and growing my own skill sets, and also that I can overcome all these challenges. And as a result, I've been able to master many different tools, more tools and skills than I ever knew that I could possess. And more than anything, I've also learned countless lessons, some of which were good lessons that helped me grow and develop my skills even further. But others were also some very painful lessons, lessons that served as nothing more than a reminder to why we do certain things or avoid them altogether. And I've also had the pleasure of working with many different people from different walks of life that have been kind enough to share their knowledge and experiences over the years. So as a result, I've been able to build on my technical knowledge and skill, allowing me to be a lot more productive. And I've also been given many opportunities that would allow me to essentially grow my leadership skills even further. And lastly, I've also been able to pick up some soft skills along the way that allowed me to better connect with the people that I work with. So much so that about a year ago, I was given an opportunity as a tech lead. This time around with an actual team. It wasn't just me alone, but I had a lot of people on my team that I could actually rely on. The project was for one of the biggest telecom companies in South Africa, where we essentially had to build some business capabilities onto their mobile app. But as exciting as this was, I was also extremely anxious. Anxious because I wasn't actually sure if I could succeed at this project. I had essentially been given more responsibility than I had ever had before in my career. And more than anything, I was afraid of failure. Because failure in this project would mean that the project would essentially run over budget and potentially impacting a whole series of other projects along the way. But I was lucky enough that I had a lot of supportive colleagues around me that tried to reassure me that I could actually succeed at this, that all I needed to do was to do what I've always done. But as soon as the project started, I felt like I'd been lied to, I'd been deceived. As a lead, I found myself spending most of my time in meetings and discussions and planning sessions and investigations and fighting fires that I didn't even know existed. And then at the end of the day, only to get home tired and exhausted, only to realize that I hadn't written a single line of code or made any progress whatsoever on the task that was actually assigned to me. But it did actually get me thinking as to what exactly is a tech lead. So after a bit of research and some introspection, I did eventually come to realize that they were right. I only needed to do what I'd always done. I'd essentially learned that to be a good lead, I only needed to be a good software engineer. Because what I had come to see was that the skills and the qualities of both the software engineers and tech leads are essentially more or less the same. Because as a lead, I found that I needed to rely on my technical skills in order to help design good software, as well as investigate and solve any problems that may come up. And then as a leader, I also needed to essentially use my leadership skills in order to provide some direction for the team, as well as motivate the people around me. And then finally, I also needed some soft skills that would help me to better connect with the people that I work with. The only thing that I would say sets tech leads apart is simply the responsibilities that we have. Well, for starters, a tech lead is nothing more than a senior level role within a technology team. We essentially become responsible for all the technical aspects on the project. And then finally, we also help guide the development team in delivering the project. The first and probably the most obvious responsibility as a tech lead would essentially just be technical leadership, where we essentially have to we become responsible for the architectural design as well as any technical decision making that may be required of us. But we also become responsible for any code reviews as well as solving any problems that may show up. But in order to fulfill this responsibility, we need to rely on our technical skills. which would essentially involve us having a deep technical knowledge that would take the form of a strong understanding of different programming languages, design patterns, algorithms, as well as software development methodologies. But I also found that I needed a bit of skill in systems architecture that would help me influence how the system would actually be designed to ensure that we actually design something that's more scalable and maintainable. And should any problems actually arise, then I had to rely on my problem-solving skills, which would help me to troubleshoot different issues and then find solutions for them. And then finally, I also had to be good at reviewing code, which I'm sure, as many of you may know, involves more than just opening up a pull request and clicking on approve. Because I know we've all done that. We saw 100 files in the pull request and we just said, okay, I trust this person, so I'll just approve it. But a code review skill actually involves us evaluating the quality of the code and then providing constructive feedback to the person. But technical leadership, as I've come to realize, also comes with its own challenges. And one of the biggest challenges that I faced was just staying up to date and basically trying to upskill while the project was ongoing. We work in an industry that's always evolving and always changing. So trying to keep up with everything that's happening can prove to be quite challenging. But as I've said before, that the skills and the qualities of a software engineer are more or less the same as that of a tech lead. So you can imagine a junior who just joined a team. They may have very little technical knowledge, and at times we may even look down on them for this very fact. But we often forget that at some point in our careers, we're all at the stage where we relied on the people around us to actually provide us with some direction. Or it could also happen where somebody experienced, like myself, gets moved to a team where I happen to be the person with the least amount of experience, and as such, becoming a junior yet again. So it follows to say that it becomes the responsibility of not just the tech lead, but also the team as a whole to essentially share their knowledge and transfer skills within the team. The second responsibility of a tech lead would essentially be team management, where we become responsible for allocating tasks to our team members, as well as mentoring them and coaching them. And then over and above this, we also need to be responsible for for evaluating their performance, as well as managing the different team dynamics that could show up. And in order to fulfill this responsibility, we essentially need to rely on both our technical skills and, on our leadership skills and our soft skills. Where as a leader, we essentially need to be responsible for mentoring our team members, where we guide them and help them develop their skills and abilities even further. But we also need to try to build a cohesive team. I've been on teams in the past where the team would essentially be afraid of their tech lead. But as I've learned, that only works against the team, as people are not as willing to actually approach the person and help them with their issues. Over and above this, we also become responsible for delegating tasks to our team members, which requires that we need to have an understanding of the different strengths and capabilities of our team members, which makes it easier for us to actually delegate tasks based on that. And then with our soft skills, we essentially need to be good communicators, where a strong emphasis would be placed on good written and verbal communication skills. But we also need to try to be a bit more empathetic towards our team members and try to be understanding of where they're actually coming from. And should any conflicts arise within the team, then our conflict resolution skills would come into play, where we have to try to resolve the different conflicts that could show up. But team management also comes with its own challenges. One of the biggest challenges that I faced was just trying to build a cohesive team. I also found that communication can also be quite challenging, as different people understand things a bit differently. So trying to communicate highly complicated technical information to both technical and non-technical people can prove to be quite difficult. And then the third and final responsibility of a tech lead would have to be project management, where we essentially become responsible for any project planning, as well as assessing and managing the risk on the project. And we also become responsible for the quality assurance on the project to ensure that the project that we build is actually of a good quality. But I understand that this can sound very similar to what a project manager actually does. But the key difference to note is that the tech lead will essentially be responsible for how the project gets built, whereas the project manager would be responsible for what the project actually is and when it gets to be built. But as leads, in order to fulfill this responsibility, we need to rely on our technical skills, our leadership skills, as well as our soft skills. Where with our with our technical skills, we essentially become responsible for the project planning on the team, where we have to be able to take highly complicated tasks, breaking them down into smaller tasks, and then delegating them to the people within our team. But we also need to manage any risk that the team could face, which essentially involves trying to identify any potential issues or challenges that the team could face, and then developing some mitigation strategies for those. And obviously, we have to set up some quality standards in order to ensure that whatever project that we're building is of an actually good standard and of a good quality. But I also found that as leads, we also need to be able to make decisions under pressure, and sometimes even with limited information and under with limited time as well. And obviously, as issues and problems show up, then we need to rely on our problem-solving skills, which will help us to find to troubleshoot issues as well as find solutions to them. And because we are constantly required to juggle many tasks and priorities at the same time, we essentially also need to be good in managing our time. And then finally, since project demands can change as well as technology requirements, we essentially also need to be quite flexible and adaptive to any circumstances. But project management also comes with its own challenges. And one of the biggest challenges that I faced as a lead was essentially just trying to manage technical debt, which is essentially any work or designs that we knew we were supposed to do, but because we were restricted by time or other factors, we couldn't actually get to it at the time. And as I've discovered, this is also one of the reasons why you may find that your tech lead and project manager are always fighting. Because on the project manager side, they may have this amazing idea that can solve a business problem or add a lot of business value to both the team and the company. But as a lead, it can be quite difficult trying to figure out the technicalities as well as finding the actual time to implement all of these ideas that they have. So I hope that the next time you see your lead and project manager fighting, you understand a little bit of where that's actually coming from. But if anything, over the years, my journey as a software engineer has taught me that the journey to becoming a great software engineer can feel like an extremely long one. And at times, it may even feel like it doesn't end. But I've also learned that it requires a mixture of different skills and skill sets that can help you. And experimenting with different combinations of these skills and skill sets can help you stand out as well as overcome any challenges that you could face along the way. And if you're able to actually overcome these challenges, you'll find that the role can also be extremely rewarding, where seeing your team's hard work and all your team's hard work finally come to life can be extremely satisfying. And because you will constantly be being challenged, you'll also be constantly growing. And as a mentor, you will get to see a lot of your team members grow and develop their careers even further. And because you'll be solving problems as you fill the role, you'll also be constantly growing and growing your problem-solving skills. And you may even be surprised at how you're capable of coming up with innovative solutions to the most difficult problems. And then finally, you'll also gain a lot of recognition for displaying your technical knowledge as well as your leadership skills. But as I've learned that becoming a tech lead can be a very scary experience. But at the same time, it can also be very liberating, where the growth and the satisfaction that you will experience can honestly not be compared to anything else. And I hope that in sharing my experiences, I didn't discourage you in any way. But if anything, my goal here wasn't to actually to convince you to become tech leads. My goal was to actually try to convince you to learn the skills and the qualities that tech leads make use of on a daily basis. Personally, my goal has never actually been to be a tech lead. It's always been to be a great software engineer and build amazing products. And in order to achieve this goal, I learned that I needed a lot of technical knowledge and technical skills. But over the years, I also learned that it wasn't actually enough for me to know and have all these skills. I needed to be able to share my knowledge and lead others. And then after becoming a lead, I also came to realize that I needed some soft skills that would actually help me to better connect with the people I work with and bring everything together. So I hope that you can take these lessons with you wherever you may go. And I hope that in some way I've inspired you, as I'm also a product of inspiration. And finally, I hope that you can go out there and be amazing code ninjas. Thank you. Okay. I think, yes, we're taking questions. There's 1, 2. Okay.
So Seale, so as
Okay.
a tech lead,
Yes.
what is your advice to a young engineer who ends up being in the same situation you were, where you got 2 burning projects and not enough bandwidth to take care of it?
Okay. So your question is, what do you do if you have you're basically working on multiple projects and you're not sure how to actually deal with it? Well, I think the easiest solution is, well, ask for help. Because a lot of the time we can't actually deal with like everything that's going on. So I think trying to find somebody that can actually help you or offer you some guidance in that can prove to be quite useful. But at the same time, I think if you try to, if you can find the capacity to actually upskill or learn as much as you can about the project that you're working on, it makes it a lot easier to actually deal with any issues that you can show up, or hopefully before there's actually problems. Okay. Then
This thing on? All right, cool. So my question is about, what do you do when a junior comes up to you and asks you a question and you just don't know the answer? Because I've had that happen a couple times, and I'm just like, wow, I thought I was good at this, and it turns out you're not. What do you do in that case?
Well, the simple answer is just be honest. Tell them you don't know. But what you should also do, ask them to actually go research and find the answer, and then come back to you with the answer. So you laugh, but it's actually very, very effective. There's 1, 2, okay, 3.
First of all, I'm a One Piece fan, so Naruto is number 3 in the big 3.
Okay.
I wanted to ask in terms of team management, right? How
Yes.
much prior experience do you need to have to be a tech lead in that space? Since as a software developer, you don't normally get opportunities to lead a team unless you get to that level.
Okay. I would say, well, how you can get experience with that, I would say start small. I literally started with like just one junior. I was given one junior. They were like, okay, help them onboard onto the system. So as you mentor that one person, you'll actually pick up some of the skills. So once you actually become a lead and you become responsible for a whole team, it's essentially still more or less the same because you spend most of the time actually just trying to help them. So I think even if you don't have prior experience, as long as you have that mentality to say that I'm here to actually help them, help me, then you'll be fine. Yeah, another one.
All right.
Yeah.
Sorry, me. So a question about, you mentioned problem-solving skills.
Okay.
In your opinion, are your problem-solving skills hindered by less sleep, or do you find that less sleep actually helps you solve the problem faster?
More sleep helps me solve them faster. Because a lot of the time, what happens is, especially if you feel like you're stuck somewhere, just taking a step away and actually a break from the problem will actually help you process it a bit better. So by the time you come back, it may actually even be a lot more obvious than you think. So if you can, I would say get as much sleep as you can.
Oh yes, how's it?
Oh,
I have a question. First of all, I would like to just thank you for the great talk. Naruto is one of my favorite animes as well. So my favorite character is Itachi Uchiha, right? Who had a different perspective of what a Hokage means, right? So my question to you is, what do you say to someone who's like very new in this field and they believe in something that a lot of people don't really believe in that thing? Just like you stayed in a project that was dying when people were abandoning ship, you stayed in a project. So how did that, like, what was going on in your mind, and how weren't you scared of what is gonna have like the impact on you if that project had like been a total disaster?
okay. Let me confirm. So your question is, what do you do if you basically
Believe
think
in
that
something?
you should be doing things a certain way,
Yeah.
and then everybody disagrees?
Yeah.
It's a bit of a tough one, but it's or at least what I've tried to do is that I've tried to kind of convince people that the problem that I'm seeing is actually the same problem that you're having. So I think if you try to open up like a bit of a discussion around it, then whether you are right or they are wouldn't actually matter, because then you'd actually be focusing more on the problem and not so much saying that no, I have a solution, we have to do it my way. Yeah. So I think just try to open up a discussion.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks for the talk. Since everyone's mentioning, I haven't watched Naruto. It's very long. I have no idea. Maybe I was born too late. But my question is, how do you assess yourself, like to see that you are ready to take on a higher role, maybe close to senior or senior? I've seen what my tech leads go through. It's not happiness. There's so many. There's so much dealing with meetings and management and all this, and I just want to know, when do you know you're ready, when either you are asked or you need to go into such a role?
The short answer is you'll never be ready, honestly. Because to be honest, even when I started with the role, I didn't really feel like I was ready. But the thing is, I think as long as you start, as long as you try to actually do your best at it, then you'll work out. You may fail, but the thing is you learn from those failures. So I think as long as you're willing to actually learn and accept that, okay, I'm not doing this because I'm the best person at it, but I'm doing it because I think I can actually figure it out as I go, then you'll be fine.
Thank you.
Mic check, mic check. Okay. Yeah, everyone is talking about their Naruto characters. I'll also mention mine, just to fit in. So I like Sasuke, none of this hero stuff. But so for you, team management did seem like a bit of a thing. How do you deal with difficult team members?
How do you deal with difficult team members? Yeah, it's a bit of a tough one. But I've always tried. It's like I've always tried to kind of ask advice from people that deal a lot with people. Because I think personally, my people skills aren't that great, which I know is ironic since I'm standing here. But yeah, but I think if you can try to find someone who's dealt with something similar, ask for their advice. But you should also be willing to actually listen to them. I think a lot of the time, it's like people aren't actually being listened to. So if you can listen to them, then you might actually find out that it's actually something you can do. If they're just being difficult, then yeah, there's nothing you can do about somebody who's just choosing to be difficult.
Hi everyone, Seale. First of all, I just want to give you a shout out. I've been fortunate enough to be part of your journey a bit and learned quite a lot from you. So big ups. I just wanted to find out, how did you like navigate self-doubt in your journey?
How did I navigate self-doubt? Yeah, no. But I did quite a lot. I think it's like, so what I try to tell myself, it's like whether I can or actually can't do it doesn't really matter, as long as I'm willing to actually go there and try. So it's like, as long as you're willing to try, then and be willing to actually learn, then it kind of builds over time. So it's like, so for me, it's a confidence. I built it based on if I've done something before, then it's easier for me to be confident about it, to say that, okay, I've done that before, so I don't have to be as worried. I just need to do it to what I did last time or something similar. So I would say face the doubt, actually. Yeah, whatever you feel like you're doubting or you're afraid of, I'd say head in that direction. Because once you actually overcome that, then that doubt just goes away. I mean, if they're willing to ask. Yeah.
Hi, Seale.
Hi.
Nice talk.
Thank you.
The question that I have is, I've spent most of my IT career in teams and less of it as a tech lead. And one of the things that I've observed over the years is people that transition from being a team member into an official tech lead or team lead or whatever. One of their time management issues that they struggle with, or what causes a lot of issues, is them having to step away from their technical actual coding more into that overseeing type role. How did you manage that for yourself? How did you achieve that to get to a point where you can let go of this code and the hyper nitty-gritty details? Thanks.
Okay, I think that you have to rely on your team. So I think that's why, like, one of the responsibilities we have is actually mentoring people. So it's like you should try to basically mentor them to the point that you can actually let go and say, okay, I trust this person to actually get this done. Because when you can do that, then you can actually let go of that aspect, and then you can focus on other things that you feel take higher priority. So it's like, don't try to be like the best or the most knowledgeable person in the team, just somebody who actually knows what's going on, and then guide everybody else to actually get to that point. Any other questions? Okay, cool. I guess I'm free now.